I love KW because the lines, the one-liners that, bold and the success is simple, not easy. Like, they're things that you can attach yourself to, right? And somebody said, I think it might have been Cody Gibson once he said, if you and I are a good fit, money's never going to be an issue.
Hello, everybody, and hello, 2023. David Donaldson here with Joe Martin on another episode of Entrepreneurial Impact. Very excited to kick off the year today with one of our luxury ambassadors, right? Matt Leiva out of the Chantilly KW Market Center. Matt, how are you doing? How was your New Year's?
I'm good. Good New Year's. A little bit chaotic. Ended up having Christmas at our house. And that decision was made 2 days before Christmas when we were in Punta Cana. So we came back to like a whirlwind of like making a bunch of food and getting the house ready. So that was good. New Year's was a little bit lower key and back in the office yesterday and getting back to work for hopefully an exciting and slightly less tumultuous 23 than 22 was.
Well, that some of the most unplanned things that happen that way, sometimes they're the best, right?
Absolutely.
Sounds like you built the plane as it was falling off the cliff for Christmas, Matt. So I applaud you and the fact that you're still in one piece.
Listen, being able to adjust on the fly, I think, is a big part of being a family person, right, and also a business person. So,
well, given it's the first podcast after the New Year, Dave, I just want to share. This was my best New Year's ever because instead of having to watch the god-awful ball drop with all the drunken CNN and all those different media speakers that got hammered and then got told they couldn't do that for this year, I actually got to watch a football game end, and that was how I rang in the new year. And I can't say that there's ever been a year that's ever happened. So 2023 is going to be a hell of a lot different.
No, I'm with you. Like they literally came on. They're like, "Oh, by the way, Happy New Year." That was 28 seconds ago, and I'm like, "Oh, sweet." It was a great game, by the way.
A couple of great games.
Yeah, it was an entertaining weekend to say the least. Well, so let's just kind of get into it. Matt. I know. For those of you listening at home, Matt's been with us a couple of years, and he's been a licensed realtor for how long now?
Got licensed in 2017.
2017, and you've been with KW now for 3 years, is that right?
No, right in 2018. I think at some point in 18 is when I joined. I think it was April, something like that.
Okay, but that time period from then till now, it's been a time of radical change for you.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Really started real estate as like a hobby, right? I mean, there was I was kind of doing some other things. I ran another small business that I had, two of them actually kind of based around kids sports. And, that business is a tough one. Luckily, had my real estate license and kind of started working in it when that business was running, and got in a position where there was some success early. And it certainly showed me a path to like the next step, and COVID was virtual suicide for those businesses. So I was able to kind of shift pretty quickly and had already kind of started shifting. So,
well, you mentioned having had a couple of businesses before this, right? So not a lot of difference from a lot of people that have that entrepreneurial spirit kind of ingrained in them. But where did that come from for you? Where did you realize, hey, there's things out there that I want to do, whether it's in real estate or some others, but I want to do this and run it my way. Where did that come from?
I mean, look, I'm a horrific employee. Like I'm your employee.
Let me be very clear.
Like, if I'm your employee, you and I hate each other within 90 days. There's no way that we're going to get along. I'm going to be a complete pain in the. I'm unfortunately, my parents are teachers. I didn't grow up like my mom is like fluent in 6 languages, like master's
What happened to you
degree.
then?
I no idea. Like the gene pool just like stopped short. And I didn't. I think. I remember being my senior year in high school and sitting there and hating it and going, I just feel like I'm locked in a box and I just need to get out. And that led to some terrible decisions in a lot of ways. It led to, me not going to college right away. I worked as an orderly in a hospital. So I literally moved like fat people and dead people around the hospital. That was my job for 6 months as an 18-year-old, and was partying and having fun and just making a little bit of money. And after 6 months, I was like, oh, to hell with this. This is the worst job ever. And it ended up pushing me to go to college more just because I was a soccer player at the time. And so I was able to play in college. Barely got an associate's degree. Like I had to beg the school to let me even get the associate's degree, and went a little bit more. And again, was found that I was there to play soccer and maybe meet girls. I don't know. That was like pretty much my only existence in college. And so that's kind of how I started. And so, I sold cars for a while, and that was really like the beginning of my career. Was I wanted to make money. I knew I wanted to make money. I had no discernible skills that I could really figure out because I didn't want to go to any sort of classes to learn any discernible skills. And I also wanted some freedom in what I made, and certainly never had the idea that there was a next level to making money. It always seemed to be more focused around like, how do I pay bills? But that's kind of where I started. And so I think being an entrepreneur, when I moved down here, I did start in real estate in about 2006, right before like the world blew up, right, in the real estate market. And I was working with guys that, there just wasn't a lot of leadership there. A lot of the people I was around, like, I hate to say it, but like they were the poster children for the greed and what was going on in 2006, 2007, right? And a lot of people that I knew that lost homes, that foreclosed on everything. And so that was my start in real estate back in 2006. It wasn't exactly illustrious. But I went into coaching soccer around here because soccer was my background, and Northern Virginia is a hotbed for high-level travel soccer.
I've got an 11-year-old that could use your tutelage.
Yeah, there you go. Right. So I did that. I ended up getting a high school coaching job at Woodson High School. I was an assistant for a year, head coach for 2 years. And then I moved to Paul VI Catholic School. Sorry.
So soccer.
Yeah.
Are you a great actor?
You know what? I'm not even.
I've watched a lot of things
man.
and I'm just impressed at the acting.
Not going to justify that with any sort of a response.
What? Well, there's sales skills right there.
There you go. I mean, look, if you can get somebody yellow carded, you're probably a good salesperson. So yeah, went to PVI and then I started a little soccer franchise teaching soccer to like 3 and 4 year olds. It was called Happy Feet. So I did that in Ashburn when I was started there, and it was cool because most soccer coaches work in the evenings, right? You work from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. You're on the field every night. You're on the field on the weekends. And none of them really do much during the day unless they have a good job where they kind of, they can partner both. But running that soccer program allowed me to coach preschool kids all day long and teach preschool kids. And then at 4 o'clock, I would go out to the travel field. So I was soccer for like 75 hours a week for a long time. And the cool thing was I built the franchise I had. I think I was the number 13 franchise to buy into this company. We ended up being one of the top franchises in production for a couple of years there, and which ended up being about 150 franchises. And then I started another company that did after school programs here in Chantilly. And it was successful right from the beginning, but not a big profit center. Overhead was really high. And it was tough. I mean, it was tough being in a business where you're really not making money, but you're responsible for all these bills. And, it's exhausting, right? And entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. And I don't say that to tell you not to do it. Okay. But like, I joked the other day with somebody, like, we're in the chafing nipples part of the marathon, right? That's what entrepreneurship is. You're
bring the Band-Aids.
Yeah, look, life sucks sometimes. I mean, it's just kind of the way it works. And when COVID hit, I mean, I'm not kidding you. I had to write a check for $45,000 to get out of the lease of the building. Okay, that was just to get out. And thank God I was in a position in this business where I went, you know what, it sucks, but I can do it. And, I think, was it Gene Rivers? And I've never met Gene, but somebody told me Gene Rivers always says, the thing that real estate gives him is that he doesn't want things to be a major thing. He just wants it to be a thing. Like if there's a medical emergency, like he can handle it. It's just another thing instead of a crisis. And that's what I've hoped to kind of build as we've grown. And that was the time when I said, okay, this business has to shut down, and I have partners. My partners wanted their money back and couldn't do it. What I could do was I could get us out of the lease. And I did that personally because I was like, you know what, this is what has to happen to kind of move on. And, luckily it's catapulted into what I hope to be my lifelong career. So that's my life story.
That's awesome. I mean, you went from working with kids to working with people that are buying property and acting like kids. So, you're pretty well skilled in that capacity.
Can be. when emotion takes over, right?
Absolutely. They're throwing the temper tantrums and
yeah,
standing and you got to put them in timeout.
That's right.
Let me ask you a different question, because I love this story about like everybody gets on this podcast. And I'll share mine. Like I got into real estate because I answered a Craigslist ad. So before Craigslist turned into Backpages, right? So
don't go to Craigslist. Don't go to
Craigslist anymore. You don't go to Craigslist anymore. Like you got like serial killers and other nefarious people.
It's the rabbit hole of rabbit holes.
Yeah. So I got into real estate because I got this falling out with I was in restaurants and hospitality. Like I had this massive night, sold like 30,000 on like $2 drinks on a Thursday, smash records, and employer comes in from New York, comes into the bathroom. There's a urinal that's broken. There's like a leaky faucet. And I'm so excited from the night before, crushing records. And he's like, I'm writing you up for having broken materials. I go, you know what? I'm done. Went on all kinds of search engines, and on Craigslist, there was a posting for career in real estate. And that's how I got into real estate, because I got pissed off by my former employer, and here we go. So what was yours? Like, what was the, you got some franchise, all that kind of stuff. What was the tipping point of like, this was the straw that broke, that said, hey, we're going into real estate now?
I don't really know. I don't know that there was a moment. I think that I joke about being a horrific employee because I actually like believe that. You don't want to manage me. And it was funny because like, I'll say this, like I had people asking me if I'd be interested in like a TL role. And I literally said, you're going to hate me in 3 months. Like this isn't going to go well. I just don't want to put either one of us in that position. But I think initially, I worked for a company that did soccer programs, and I got paid literally the peanuts, right? Like it was barely enough for me to be there. And I saw what was being made, and I saw these big programs. And in sports programs, it's $150 a kid per program, 8 weeks. You have your coaching costs, and they're just like field money and then profit. And I just kept realizing that for me, what I was good at was kind of being my own boss, and not great at it, but better at it than being an employee. And I will tell you, a lot of it came from coaching high school, because in public school, it was a little bit more rigid. When I coached at Woodson, like it's the county kind of tells you, look, this is your dates. This is what you do. Here's what you can and can't do. When I went to private school, I went to a program that was a complete and utter disaster. I mean, it was literally the year before all the best players had left. They didn't want to play. And I went in and they all came back and played. And what I realized was that was a little company I was building. Okay. It was a little like, I controlled the uniforms. I controlled our schedule. I controlled our preseason. I controlled. And within a year, we were fighting for a state championship on a team that had won 2 games the year before, right? Mm-hmm. In the most competitive soccer league in the country. Okay. The Washington Catholic League is not, anything to raise your nose at. So when I did that, I kind of went, okay, well, I've been successful here. They kind of let me do my own thing. And I've built it, and I'm recruiting players, and I'm getting known by college coaches, and that was successful. So why can't I just do this in a business world? And I knew how to sell things, right? So okay, I can do that. So I think that's probably to answer your question. Now that I don't know that I've ever thought about that question, but I think that might have been a part of me just feeling like, all right, as long as I'm kind of left alone, I can do what I want to do. And I'm going to screw up 1 billion times. I know that. But I also know what the win is. And I think I can get there.
Well, I want to applaud you for retracting from the I don't know to give a very detailed answer, because Joe's not a fan of I don't know. That creates a whole nother
No, I know
set of
that.
parameters.
Hold on. Do you know the background on I don't know? You know the background on I don't know. So anybody that's listening, you're about to get like a fun story of like why I don't know is completely unacceptable. Is that I don't know basically says that you are not capable of thinking on your own, which means you need to be told what to do. And if I'm paying you a salary or a contract wage, whatever, because I'm paying for your services to do something, and you tell me you don't know what to do, then do I get to rebate back what I just paid you because I got to do your job? That's very black and white. But the problem that I think in our society, we're totally going down a rabbit hole, and then we'll get back into Matt's story, is that we don't challenge people to think. We actually allow people to say, I don't know, which is the most powerful coaching question is, well, if you did know, what would it be? Or even better in my world, that Dave's heard this, so I'll be like, okay, Dave, I'm dead in a ditch. You got to make a decision. What is it? Right. And I think that I don't know is so disempowering, but allows people this cover to save face ego wise. Because if I say, I don't know, now I can go to my colleague and say, well, I didn't do that project because I didn't know what to do. Joe's the problem. He didn't tell me. Right. So now they're going to push the accountability to somebody else. And they're also actually avoiding the success, because if they actually just did it, yeah, they might fail, but isn't the likelihood of them succeeding about the same it is as failure? So like, that's why I don't know, draws a nerve with me. Is that like people have such greatness and you're covering yourself for ego and lack of whatever, because you're going to say, well, I don't know. And it's been acceptable in the US to say, I don't know to your supervisor or anybody else. And then that somehow that's okay. Yeah. Sorry.
And I'm not interested in even trying, right? Like, I don't know, whatever. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Anyway, I thank you, Dave. I mean, you got me fired up on it.
It doesn't take much. I know how to poke the bear. I've learned over time, right? What the triggers are. But that's an interesting trigger though, right? Because sometimes we'll say things like that, and you knew right away. You could like to pivot in, you dug deep to find your response. And I think that pause to let that happen, that's important, because you even said, it's like, wow, I never thought of it that way, but you were able to formalize your opinion and go there. And that matters. So you come from a unique background, right, of being an entrepreneur that you weren't necessarily looking for, but you recognize opportunity. I think for a lot of people that are building businesses and being entrepreneurs, that's really the kind of choice that I can do that. And you recognize that I not only can do that, but I can do it well. And they see success quickly or over time, but also recognizing, which you alluded to, being able to get out and saying, okay, I have to make a change here because this isn't going in a direction that's going to end up well for me, and make the hard decisions. Now you're running a real estate team. Right. And you're impacting lives of people, because you're not only now just running a business, right? You're running a business and you're coaching, you're building, you're bringing people into your organization, right? We had a meeting the other day, you're working with trying to bring somebody in, and it was quite impressive to watch you handle that situation. Because there was identified with somebody that was trying to join you, and you saw, hey, there's a real good fit for us and this people together. So how do you fall back on what you learn and apply that to where you are now, which is building this type of an organization?
I think one of the lines, I love KW because the lines, the one-liners that, bold and the success is simple, not easy. Like, they're things that you can attach yourself to, right? And somebody said, I think it might've been Cody Gibson once said, he said, if you and I are a good fit, money's never going to be an issue. Right. And I went, man, that's really, and I know that probably, came wherever it came from. But when I look at building, if I think we're the right fit, or I see a potential for being a right fit, like, I'm going to try to figure out how to get there. And I think that is, I think I grew quickly as an agent. We grew quickly as a team in terms of production, and we're not a big group, but my mindset is always to figure out how. It's not to figure out why not, right? Because, and I think, like, what do they talk about when you're an entrepreneur and you have an idea? You're going to hear everybody telling you why not. Who's the person telling you why it will work or why it could work, right? And like, who cares if it's not going to like throw you off a cliff? Why push down the fear of it not working when the potential of it working is unbelievable, right? I mean, when I first got my license, multiple people telling me, oh, well, there's a ton of agents out there. Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they know you as a soccer coach. They're not going to know you as anything else. Well, $250 million in sales volume later in 4 years. Really?
Well,
I mean, I think, yeah, sorry. So
no,
that's,
you're good.
I think that's where I go with it, right? Is like, as much as there are times where I probably come up with stupid ideas and I take stupid risks, there's also a lot in there that has been really good, and it's because I'm kind of willing to take that leap.
Well, think about it, right? There's a couple things like psychology and how we like are raised, right? Because like if you think about your family is your mom most of the time is never going to tell you to go do some crazy thing. She's looking out at how to protect you, right? She's saying like, don't do this, don't do that. Like even how we raise our kids, don't eat with this hand, don't do that. Whatever the thing is, it's always like to prevent some type of loss. So you grow up in an environment that's always protecting you from some type of loss. But let's be real, we're not worrying about saber-toothed tigers and like trying to find our next shelter in like a cave. We're trying to figure out how we're going to make our next fire and get our next meal. Like we actually have stability within shelter, but we still have these underground foundation psychology of how do we prevent loss, and that prevention of loss eventually causes a challenge for external growth. And think about this, what if take political views aside, but if you take JFK, and if someone had said like, you're crazy, you can't go to the moon, like would we have had the right race and push on from NASA to get to the moon first, right? Like, and had he not made that audacious thing back when he was the president, would we have done it? Like, would we, like, someone's got to go out there and do it. And yeah, I think your point of failure is inevitable, right? It's just a matter of how fast you fail and move on and keep it going. And I think that's really impactful you brought up for everybody listening, is that like half the time it has nothing to do with your ability to achieve. It has everything to do with your mindset and whether or not you can actually say, I got a 50% chance of losing, but I got a 50% chance of winning. What does winning look like? So I thanks, Matt. I think that's a huge point for people.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people that just having the ability to recognize that I can do this, right? I've told this story before, right? I came from a background where I never imagined, because I didn't grow up in this, so that working for yourself made sense. I had dad's a pension guy, uncle's a pension guy, granddad's a pension guy, mom worked for a doctor's office for 35 years. So opening up my own shop and doing anything on my own never crossed my mind. Then marrying into a family where they were serial entrepreneurs completely opened me up to something I never met. Now, what you're exposed to still doesn't define on what you're going to be able to do with that. You still have to have the internal fortitude or just the dare, the gall to go, and you know what? I'm going to do it. Some people are just meant to have a job. Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. They could have the idea, but they might not have the aptitude to execute because they're scared to death of the fail and not understanding what the success could ultimately be at some point in time.
Yeah, look, if the entire world was entrepreneurs, we'd all be a bunch of lunatics, right? You need a level of stability. And I have friends of mine that are government employees that have an unbelievable retirement, great salary, whatever, and they are doing just fine, right? I just know that that's not a world I can live in. I'd rather be, and I'm not a big risk taker. Like I'm not jumping out of a plane with a parachute on. It's not happening. But from this standpoint, I feel as though that being locked into a desk all day, that's way worse for me than what the alternative is.
Well, that's a matter of assessing risk and looking at it differently.
Yeah.
This isn't necessarily risk in that capacity, because as Joe alluded to earlier, it's not life threatening. You can recover if you plan and you look at things and you can get out, or you can write a $45,000 check.
Correct.
It's painful. It's just not right. Kill you. We're not brain surgery or open heart surgery here.
So now how does this look going forward for you? How do you take what you've learned, right? And you're growing your team. And like I said, you've got, there's been challenges there. Right?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And what keeps you driving forward? And what are you pouring into those that have come along for the ride with you?
Look, I'm going to be very transparent here. I am hyper focused right now on generating business because, the last couple of weeks, our team hasn't put anything under contract, right? The world's changed and I'm very aware of it. And we are as a team digging deep into the basics again. Everything is the basics. We're not getting fancy. We're just going basics and meeting people and getting into our communities, because the world that we've been in, and by the way, when I tell people I've been in the business since 2017, I get this response. Well, that was a really good time to get into real estate. That comment pisses me off to no end. And it's personally insulting to me, because what I look at is I go, look, a good business owner knows how to adapt to any market that they're in. If I sell hot dogs and the entire country goes vegan, I better come up with a different hot dog, right? Really quickly. I can't just say, well, screw it, I guess I'm out, because I don't exist anymore. And so the market that we were in was completely nuts. We know that. But we also know agents that had some of their lowest years in the last couple of years, right? I mean, there are agents, I'm sure you guys know them, that actually had their lowest production years, 20, 21, 22, for whatever reason. So I think if you know how to pivot and how to react, you can survive through anything. And the key is to pivot and react quickly, not to wait. So that's what we're doing. It just to be very black and white. And we're looking at our expenses, where they are, where they should be, things that we can cut out, things that we don't need. But we're excited about 23. I think there's a lot of trepidation. There's a lot of not really 100% sure what things are going to look like. I mean, 2020 in March, all of us thought that it was over, right? And look what happened. So the key is none of us really know. None of the paid finance guys on CNN or Fox or any of the newsstand, they don't have any idea, right? The key is to keep going and understand what the basics are and how you get to transactions, i.e. money. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And, my goal with my team and everybody with me, we talked about it today. My job is to be there to support them to build the biggest businesses they possibly can within our structure. That's our plan. And it down to our, every single admin person on the team, every single agent, the new agents, if they want to buy investment properties, we're there to help, and I'm there to help. And so we're doing things that will help set them up for success. And we are in no way, shape, or form sitting there going, all right, guys, put your head down and hope we don't get hit next year. No, we are getting out and attacking as much of this market as we possibly can. So if that answers your question.
So what I'm hearing you say is like, stop being on defense, go on offense, right? Like go out and make the business happen, go do the lead generation, because over the past 3 years, most people don't know what that is. So you're going to give yourself a competitive advantage by actually going out and being aggressive. One last thing to kind of wrap up here, Matt. Why do you do what you do? Like, how do you know, you're 80 years old, 90 years old, you're on your deathbed, and you're saying like, I left an impact, or I had a legacy left behind me through real estate? What is it that drives you to get up every day to make the world a better place?
I think number one is I'm super competitive. Okay. I mean, I just am. I was a college athlete. I coached at a high level for a long time. I love competition, and I view this as partly competition. It's not an ego thing. It's that I need to get up with a challenge every day and a puzzle to figure out, and how to win, how to beat the puzzle. And so that's a part of it, right? The big why is my family, right? I mean, I don't have a 401k. I don't have retirement. I have pension. None of that's going to happen for me. So I have one option, and that option is to build as big as I possibly can and leave as big of a future for my kids as I possibly can. So, in the middle of a market turning, I bought my first apartment building last month. I didn't even see it before I bought it, which was probably a terrible idea. But I saw a deal and I went, okay, the numbers work, do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. And it's a little scary, right? Clearly. But what I know is that every building, every property that I buy is a couple less houses that I may have to sell 10 years from now, 15 years from now, right? Because that's going to start generating the income for my family, for my girls. Like, we just literally today, we paid off the second third of both of their college education. My hope is next year, I don't have to worry about their college education anymore. Those are things that are just a big deal. And I know those are financial things, but look, there's just a reality to it, right? I mean, We live in one of the most expensive areas in the country. There's a reality to what this world gives us, and you can only do with it what you can do with it. And what I see is that we can turn commissions into investment properties and investments that grow long term. So that's a big piece of it. The other piece is I coached kids for a really long time, and I like having agents on our team that I can help coach. I'm not coaching them on the soccer field anymore, but it's amazing how many lessons and how many strategies I would use on the soccer field emotionally with my teams that we use in our regular team meetings, and we talked today, sometimes we get we change things a lot. And I go, well, are we changing things or are we pivoting and adapting? Right. And you play a team that plays long ball, that kicks it from the back every time. You have to play one way. You play a team that holds the ball and holds possession, and they have really skillful players. You have to adjust your strategy a bit. That's what real estate is. You have to adjust your strategy, not necessarily your game plan, but how you attack your game plan sometimes has to change, and don't be afraid to change. And I think I talk to a lot of agents, especially, and I don't want to make it an age thing, but a lot of agents that have been in the business a long time. One of the things that I hear a lot, I'm really opposed to change. And I go, hey, listen, the train's coming. You're either going to get run over by it or you're going to get on it, or at least get out of the way of it. Right. And some of the bigger producing agents that I know, I've heard them say, I just don't know if I like change, and
Change is hard.
Yeah, it is for everybody. But do you want to die on that sword? Or do you want to go, to hell with it? It's going to be uncomfortable, but Scott Toombs from Bold said this once. He said, is the pain of making the call to the expired and getting told to piss off worse than the pain of not paying your bills for your family that month? Answer the question. Okay, no problem. Tell me to piss off. I'll make the next call. Fine.
I think you make a really good point on, you talk about impact for your family and impact for the people you're around, is that the cash that comes from the closing is the vehicle that allows you to do all those things. And I think that's very important for people to understand, is that profit, you can't have a purpose in business without profit, because you need the capital to allow time or hiring or reinvestment, whatever the thing may be. Is like, it all starts with money. Right. And then once you have that money, you're able to deploy it in whatever impactful way you want to have. And I think now more than ever, one is the person that has the abilities to take on those investments and those opportunities is going to make more money. And the other part is also factoring in the ability to be okay with change. Yep. And I think that we live in a world where it's constantly changing. And because real estate has been insulated and protected for a long period of time, but this is how we do things, because we had control of data, we had control of the buyer and seller, and that you could only get access to our MLSs. Well, that's all changing because the information is being disseminated in all kinds of different ways. So we have to really think about, how do you maintain control of the client, not control, sorry, the best place for the client to have the best real estate experience, because of all these other avenues that have actually come into the real estate industry. So I think you're 100% right. Adopt the change. And then actually what's even better is cause of the change. If I was to change any conversation as we close this one out for everybody, be the change. Because if you're going to ride the change, you're actually not directing where the train's going to go. But if you actually go start the train, you can dictate: are we going to San Antonio, or are we going to New York? Are we going to Buffalo? Are we going to Detroit? Where are we going? And now you're actually empowered as an entrepreneur to drive where that change is going to be, as opposed to being a passenger on it.
Yeah, drive. And Gary talks about it all the time in his group, is which one of you is going to disrupt the industry next. I mean, it's something to think about, and there's a lot of programs that are coming through Keller Williams that were developed by KW agents that said, I can come up with a better way to do this. And then they went to Gary and they went, hey, what do you think? And a lot of them, he went, yep, I'm in, let's do it. Because there's a disruption there, and that can be done on a local level as well.
Well, listen, Matt, I really appreciate your insight and your candor, and for the fact of the matter of kind of joining us the third day of the new year. Especially, when we have a lot to do to make sure that this is a successful year. So with that being said, thanks for joining us on Entrepreneurial Impact, and give us a listen. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt.